I'm Kat. I'm here at Tidewater Comicon with Tini Howard, writer of The Skeptics, Magdalena, and Power Rangers Pink. And you're watching ComicsVerse. So, Tini, how are you liking Tidewater so far?
Great. Tidewater, I've been doing Tidewater for this will be my third or fourth year. So it's a con I'm really familiar with. And they're always really good to me. And the people in Virginia Beach are always really, really good to me. I have people who come see me at this con every year and buy whatever I've got that's new. And I feel really lucky that this con is such a cool community that's always doing that for me. So.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It's a super cool con. So I want to ask you a little bit about the Valkyries. You're a former Valkyrie. I'm also a former Valkyrie. And I know they're a really welcoming and supportive community. So I wanted to ask you what sort of support you got from them when you segued into writing comics.
Oh gosh, well, I mean, that's the funny thing is that, like, Valkyries are everywhere in the industry now. There are so many writers, artists, press people that work at publishers now that are all either, former Valkyries or maybe are current Valkyries. Maybe they're, they stay in their job at a comic shop and do other things as well. I know I was writing and working. But it was great. I mean, I've always had great support. And the thing is there is no official, there's no, hive mind or, official thing. I couldn't do anything other than be like, hey, here's a PDF of my new book and share it. Happen to share it with 600 of my closest friends who all work in comic shops. But I mean, I've just made so many really close friends. Some of my best friends that I have now are people that have come out of the Valkyries, and so from there it's it's the kind of support that you can't force and you can't buy. It's just organic, genuine people supporting my work and liking it, which feels amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So for anybody who doesn't know, can you explain the Valkyries a little bit?
Well, they're just women that work in comic shops. It was just a group is just a group of women who work in comic shops, and they're still super active, and it was started by Kate Leth, who's a writer and artist. And yeah, it was a place for me when I was working at a comic shop to have 600 close friends who also worked in comic shops and understood the unique challenges of being a young woman working in a comic shop.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of unique challenges. So you also wrote Power Rangers Pink, and I want to ask you, was there anything from the show that you're really excited to bring to the script?
I got to address the letter that Kim writes Tommy that he gets in Power Rangers Zeo, and that was amazing, because that was always a thing that Power Rangers fans were like, why did she do that? And I got to be like, well, okay, calm down, put down your pitchforks, don't come for Kim. I will fight you. But to address that and to address how Kim's life had changed, and instead of it being as simple as, oh, it's another boy or something like that, I got to address the way she grew and changed and the adult she became from the teenager with attitude that she was. So,
were you a Power Rangers fan growing up?
Oh, definitely. And it's funny because I've definitely cycled. When I was a kid, Kim was my favorite. Then I went through a serious Billy phase. And now, after writing 6 issues, including him, my favorite is Zach. He's my favorite now. So.
Yeah, I was a huge Kim fan and also Trini fan, so I love that she was in that too.
That's one thing I bring up about Power Rangers a lot, is it was one of the only shows on TV where there was more than one girl on the team.
And I really love that you really emphasized their friendship too in the comic.
Thank you. That was really fun and really really special to me, was getting to emphasize that they're best friends. And when you really have a best friend, someone like that, it doesn't matter if you are on other ends of the world working on different stuff. You see each other and it's oh, hey, babe, it's nothing changed.
I really loved it. So your first comic credit is Magdalena, Seventh Sacrament, which you won from the Top Cow Talent Hunt. And now you're also writing Magdalena. So can you tell me about that experience winning that and writing for that story now?
Sure. So I wrote Seventh Sacrament as a Top Cow Talent Hunt script, which is the thing that they do. Top Cow, if you're not familiar, is a section of Image Comics, or a subset, kind of like Skybound and all those of Image Comics. An imprint, I suppose. Imprint is the word I'm looking for. And they do a talent hunt every year. They're doing one this year that's going right now, where they kind of they take one of their, part of their world, so to speak, and they say, okay, write a story that goes in here. And the year that I submitted, they chose artifacts, which includes Witchblade and the Darkness and Magdalena and, those characters from the 90s that we all know and love. And I just wrote a script, which is funny because a lot of the things said, don't create a new character, don't reinvent our mythology. But I was like, I know, but my ideas are really good. So I did both of those things. And I wrote it and I won. And since then, I've done some other work for Top Cow. They've always been an amazing place for me to go. And I'm still like friends with everyone over there. And, Matt Hawkins is like my Uncle Matt. But yeah, and so since then I've worked with them and I've pitched a bunch of series. And some of them, didn't go anywhere because it's the name of the game. But then ultimately I got to my friend Ryan Cady, who reached out to me and said they wanted to do a Magdalena series. And that was like his dream, was to write Magdalena. And I always wanted to as well, but it was like his dream. And so when he asked me to co-write it with him, it was like, I felt like he was asking me to like give his daughter away at her wedding. I was like, thank you. And so we have a blast. It's so fun. Christian Dabari and Mike Spicer, our art team, are next level geniuses. It's really fun to take something that in the past had that very like shiny, beautiful Top Cow House style and watch Christian and Mike turn it into this like ink black and neon red, like vibrant horror book, which was absolutely what we wanted. And we couldn't be happier with the way it's coming out.
That sounds so awesome. So you're also writing The Skeptics. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I actually just finished writing The Skeptics. It's a 4-part series for Black Mask that's about a pair of teenagers who lie and say that they have superpowers to try and stop World War III during the 1960s. My short pitch for it is that it's Archie does Watchmen. It's kind of half Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, teen Jinkies, 60s hijinks mystery, and half intense Cold War, Cuban Missile Crisis level drama. And, I thought for some reason that those two things should go together, so I did.
I love it. So do you have any advice for anybody who's wanting to segue into writing comics? I know you have a background in comics journalism, so how does that kind of play into that?
So I actually never started doing comics journalism until after I already started writing comics. So for me, it wasn't for me, it was just when I started writing comics, I was like, oh, I just want to do as much work as I can around comics. And so I was able to do comics journalism for places like Paste and Teen Vogue. But then I found that journalism, there's a reason that a lot of comics journalists and comics writers you have to kind of give up on one or the other. Not always, but sometimes, because, it can be a conflict of interest. I got to the point where I was working for all these publishers, so I couldn't cover any of them. I couldn't cover half the industry because I felt like it was a conflict of interest to cover anything that I was working on. And so I moved into writing comics fully, which was what I wanted to do from the start. But if you want to write comics, the big thing to do is read comics. Read comics and learn everything you can. Get an idea of what you like and what you don't. Sometimes it'll come back and remind you in interesting ways while you're working. You'll be like, oh, I guess I'm referencing this panel from an 80s Teen Titans book or whatever. But read all over. Don't just read, superhero comics. Don't just read wild indie comics. If you're learning to write scripts, read everything, and then you got to write too. You can't just think of ideas. You got to write them down. So.
Definitely. So do you have anything else coming out that we can look forward to?
Sure. So in July, the first issue of Rick and Morty Pocket Like You Stole It will be out, which there was a preview of in the Oni Press Rick and Morty Free Comic Book Day book, which is a blast. That's 5 parts, and it is Rick and Morty in the world of Pocket Morty is the game, and it's some of the most fun I've ever had writing. And then the Magdalena is going to be finishing up. And I have a couple big announcements dropping at San Diego this year, but nothing I can talk about yet.
Awesome. That's so exciting. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview with us.
Thank you, Kat.
You can find more interviews like this, podcasts, reviews, videos, analyses, and more all at ComicsVerse.com. Again, I'm Kat. Thanks for watching.